welcome everybody to Justice Served Daily. I hope you guys are doing well this evening, and I appreciate you guys all being here. Hello, Mama Bear and Kelt. I see you guys out there. I am making sure that I don't have any trouble with my documents here. And while I'm doing that, I would like to welcome that I do have a familiar guest with me, which is Christine Cooper. Hello, Christine.
Hello.
I hope you're doing well today.
Yeah, I'm doing very well. Thank you very much for having me on your show again.
Well, I appreciate you being here because I know that we want to make sure, the continuance of making sure that we get justice for Oakley and let everybody know, what has been going on in the case and what's happening and all that stuff. Now, I will remind everybody that I had shared before, way back when I was tremendously upset after learning that Christine and her family discovered information about how Oakley was found and the condition how Oakley was found. And after I saw Christine, as a grandmother just show up to really just the reaction, basically the raw reaction of that emotion of that was revealed and released in the news. So the last full video that I did was also reflecting my being upset and everything, for the family at that time. So, so that's the last time I did an actual video. I have kept everything posted and stuff in the community posts and everything for you guys to know. And I did state at that time that I, had the probable cause affidavit, and that was something that I just didn't want to go through at the time, due to the fact that, the family had been through enough that this got revealed out there, and it wasn't about, being the first one who reports it. It's about letting the family have their time to deal with everything, because I'm sure that was just unbelievable for it to just be spread out there. But we're going to talk about that too today as well. So let me go ahead and I'm going to pull up my screen of some information that Christine has shared. And no, I don't want that. Sorry about my delay. I'm not the quickest at it, but I get it done. All right. And we're going to do, here we go. So this show we're calling Timeline in the Failures and Murder of Oakley Snow. And the information that we're going to be going through from a probable cause affidavit, as far as the rest of Madison and ROAN, I will be going over that in just a totally separate video. I'm going to go ahead and read that totally separate. For you guys will see where all that information is, and then additional information, obviously, that we're not going to cover all of that because it is a 26-page probable cause affidavit. And I don't want you guys to miss any details and information that is being said. But what Christine has done has really shared with us updates and information of things that should have happened that were failed for Oakley. And also, it was information that was incorrect on the probable cause affidavit that she found. And so we're going to be addressing all of those things here tonight. So as you can see, this is the state of Indiana against Madison Marshall and the co-defendant ROAN Waters. Just to make sure you guys know, first of all, Christine is the grandmother of Oakley Snow. She is the stepmom to Madison Marshall. So Christine's husband is Madison Marshall's father. And Madison Marshall is obviously the mother of Oakley Snow. And then ROAN Waters was a boyfriend of Madison Marshall. So just to catch you guys up of what that is. So we're going to start going through this timeline. And I apologize in advance because Christine will tell you I will screw up some of these counties' names. And some of them, like this one here, I'll let you do that one, Christine.
Sure. It's Ofusky.
Okay, yeah. What I would pronounce it, I'd be bleeped, okay, on YouTube, because that's where I want to go. So we have that on October 26th of 2022 in that county in Oklahoma, deputies were called to the home of a Michelle Wagner to do a welfare check on Madison and the two children. So Madison Marshall's daughter, Oakley Snow, who was 1.5, and then Oakley had a younger brother who was also with it, was a baby. So ROAN decided to cause a scene when the deputies showed up on a welfare check that was called in. And Madison called the deputies back out once she and the children arrived at a safe place. And Madison reported the abuse of Oakley. ROAN Waters hit Oakley in the mouth, causing injury to her mouth and lip. ROAN had hit Oakley because she was crying. And ROAN had also hit Madison after she had told him he could not hit a child like that. The deputies had every right by Oklahoma law to go and arrest ROAN after they got proof of the abuse. But those deputies were too lazy to go and arrest him, and they honestly didn't want to deal with him due to his behavior earlier in the day. Had they arrested ROAN, he wouldn't be sitting here today. We wouldn't be sitting here today. Sorry. This was the first failure for Oakley. So, Christine, you want to kind of expand a little bit on that or say anything about that?
Yeah. This obviously was the first failure because Oklahoma has 72 hours from the time that they find they have proof of the physical proof of abuse to actually arrest the perpetrator. And I truly believe that's my statement there with being too lazy and not wanting to deal with him earlier because of his actions earlier in the day. ROAN is very well known for being very loud and obnoxious when there's any police presence around. We'll talk about it later on when he does the same thing later on. But that's really common for him to start showing his true colors. And I truly believe that they just did not want to deal with that kind of behavior. And so they allowed him to just, walk free, which obviously we know that it took until November 7th to even get them to issue warrants for him for this abuse that had happened.
So I kind of pulled out from the probable cause affidavit from the affiant, the officer who did the full probable cause affidavit with all of the facts. Obviously, this piece that Christine is referring to is there, showing the October 26th, the date, and when they were contacted about the abuse, when they were contacted about the hit to the face, when it was contacted about that he had also not only hit Madison Marshall, but had hit Oakley at the time. And so that this just confirms again about what Christine is saying. And you can see even on the bottom of this that he immediately began yelling. So the deputies could no longer hear what the occupant of the SUV were saying. And so this just shows, again, as you guys know, I like to just show proof of where some information is coming from. So we've got that. So the next info that Christina shared and updated here of January 19th. So think about that, guys. This is October of 2022 that we're talking that this baby's injured, that, the police are called out. They don't do anything for it. And then, but later they issue an arrest warrant. So, but now we're in January already. So Zachary Snow, who is OAKLEE'S and OAKLEE'S little brother's dad, reported to SCSO, which is in Oklahoma, that Oakley and her brother were taken from his home by Madison and Oakley's known abuser. And that's where she's referring to Roan Waters. And he was told that there was nothing they could do because BioMom had sole rights. I want to just point out to everybody that Zachary Snow and Madison Marshall were not married. And Oklahoma law has that if you're not married, that the sole custody is in the hands of the mom until you would go to court and establish rights with the child. So that means Madison can solely decide and make decisions of what's going on. So anyway, that they had no right to, do anything, that she had the sole rights. However, that is incorrect because Oakley qualified for an Amber Alert because she was with her known abuser who actually now had an active warrants for the child abuse against Oakley from October of 2022. So best they could do was finally file a missing persons report. And this is where, Christine, this is the second failure for Oakley.
Yes. Oakley very much qualified for an Amber Alert. That's not just that's not a personal opinion. That's a factual statement. It's been stated by multiple members of law enforcement who are, looking at this case and seeing what has happened here and taken place. She most certainly qualified for an Amber Alert back in January out of Oklahoma. Had that Amber Alert been issued, I truly believe that Oakley would have never made it across the state line. That vehicle was a very easily identifiable vehicle. It was a blue Dodge Durango. You really couldn't miss it. And had they done the right thing, we know that Amber Alerts work. We know that they work. We've seen it time and time again. And I truly believe that we wouldn't be sitting here today had they done the right thing to begin with.
So that's the second failure that we have that's going on from the immediate notification that Oakley's in a situation where she's getting abused. Then Oakley's sitting here taking from her home where she was staying and now gone out of state. Again, I went ahead and pulled this from the probable cause affidavit. Again, if you're coming in late, I will be doing and releasing just a video that I just go through the whole probable cause affidavit for you guys can hear all of the details. But this talks about that again, proof. Zachary Snow contacted the police saying that he is the biological father, that they were taken from his residence, and about the report that, you know, she's traveling with the man who had abused her. And then they do also recognize in this probable cause affidavit that after that report was done October 22nd, November 7th is when they finally made the warrant for Waters for the arrest of the child abuse and the domestic assault battery on Madison in front of the minor, but they didn't go pick him up. So now we know that, you know, here they're taken off.
Yeah. I think if you can click back on that one real quick.
Sure.
That's something I just saw in there that's incorrect.
Oh,
It's not incorrect by us. It's incorrect.
Sorry.
You're good.
No. Hold on. Not this one, not this one, this one. This one?
Yeah. So it says later that day, ZS contacted OCSO. That's not the correct department that he contacted. OCSO is a Fusky County sheriff's office. Who he contacted was Seminole County. That's where he resided and the children resided, was Seminole County. So they've got that incorrect here in this probable cause affidavit. So
and let everybody know this probable cause that is being prepared is from Nicholas Hubbs, that is out of IMPD of Marion County. Yes. So the whole probable cause affidavit of all the reason it's 26 pages long, everybody, is because they're accumulating all the info back to when it was first reported of her abuse in October of 2022, all the way up until that they find OAKLEE'S body. So this is somebody in Marion County filling in all of this information on the probable cause affidavit with the details of that. So,
yes. And I mean, I can also point out right here that there was a press conference done by Seminole County, and the sheriff of Seminole County was asked in that press conference, and Janie, I'll get that for you at some point here, so you have it. It's a video clip of where a news reporter comes out and says, you know, basically, you know, why, you know, like the Amber Alert and all these different things, and he blatantly lies and says that what was going on had nothing to do with the original child abuse charges back in October. So I will definitely get that information over to you, because it's a huge thing to go on TV like that and blatantly lie. And I think it needs to be called out. And if you attempt to speak to him about it, he will kick you out of his office. He does not want to have that conversation. So I think it's really important to call that out and to call that into question, and why he stated what he stated. Again, that's just another failure. It's another lack of care and concern for OAKLEE and what happened to her. And it's literally just dismissing her and the situation, and how important these things are, and how connected they are.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important. I'll get it over to you.
Okay. All right. So let's pop to the next group page here. So in the timeline in the failures and murder of OAKLEE Snow, between November 2022 and January 2023, ROAN Waters, who was wanted in the state of Oklahoma for the child abuse charges from October of 22 against OAKLEE, resided at 305 Albany Street in Indianapolis, Indiana. This was arranged by his mother, Brandy Pearson, who kicked her previous tenants out to allow ROAN to move in. Those tenants moved out in the middle of the night. Brandy Pearson knew at this time that Roan had warrants out for her arrest in Oklahoma, but still harbored him. Between January 19th, 2023 and February 9th of 2023, Roan Waters, Madison Marshall, and the two children resided at the 305 Albany Street in Indianapolis, Indiana. This home was owned by Roan's mother, Brandy Pearson, which was a known trap house. Once again, Brandy Pearson knowingly harbored a fugitive this entire time and did nothing to turn Roan over to authorities. Let it also be known that Brandy Pearson, Keona Waters, Roan's sister, and Brenda Waters, Roan's brother, also were aware that Roan was a fugitive on the run and did nothing about it. Brandy, Keona, and Brindle were also fully aware of the abuse that Oakley was enduring at the hands of Roan during this entire span of time, and not one of them reported it. So, first of all, the trap house info, if that's not, I mean, I guess I know what that means now. It is in the probable cause affidavit of a trap house, but basically, guys, a trap house is like, it's like a drug house, right, Matt or Christine?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So the police and the probable cause affidavit said that it's a known trap house. This is the location where it is. This is the location where they knew that they had went to. Now, the reason also that you point this out, Christine, is because that is a long time frame for Oakley to be there and her little brother there. If people know that they're missing out of Oklahoma and yet they're in Indianapolis for that span of time from January 19th to February 9th.
Yes, it's if you start really looking at the dates as I've laid them out for you, it's almost a month between each major event that happens in Oakley's case.
Yes. And then, and the info that you know about that Brandy Pearson and that family members knew that they were wanted, was that for probable cause affidavit as well?
It's just knowing, it's a couple of things. Part of it is insider information that I won't disclose, but insider information. And the other part of it is just if you look at the timelines and everything that adds up, Roan, after his warrants were issued sometime in November, he took off from Oklahoma back to Indianapolis. Obviously, he didn't have Madison and the children with him at the time, but he did go to Indianapolis. This is where we know that he resided at the trap house, 305 Albany, there from November until he went back in January to pick up Madison and the children from Oklahoma. So yes, just looking at the timeline, that's a huge part of it. Brandy, it's her house. She owns it. She's the landlord. So she knew exactly what was going on. There's nothing that happens between that entire family that they don't know what one or the other is doing.
And so the people knew that Roan was from Indianapolis. He had went home to Indianapolis, goes back to get Madison and the kids, and heads back to Indianapolis.
Yes.
So basically, they were there for that length of time with authorities not going to check where he was actually staying and living.
Yes.
With this
and
man.
Also been said through, like I said, insider information that a process server had come to the 305 Albany Street address on multiple occasions while Roan was there, and was asking. I don't know what they were attempting to serve, but Roan blatantly looked these people in the face and said, "We don't know who that is." It's just crazy because there's so many points in time where Roan and Madison and the children are directly under the nose of somebody who could have made a difference, and Oakley could still be here today, but it was just continually overlooked.
Yep. Yep. So we go with about a month's period of time that Madison and Roan are with the kids at this address in Indianapolis. And obviously, we end up knowing this address in Indianapolis because it's also reported on the news when they go to look and to search and everything else. And obviously, it's in the probable cause affidavit that was all released. So,
hey, JSD, can I scoot back a little bit, because I think there was one thing that we didn't get to cover here, and I think it's really important.
Let me go backward. Oh no, so I always want to go the other way.
That's right. And I'm not sure if it's in there. It's not in there. January the 27th. We know that on January the 27th, Roan Waters and Brandy Pearson, his mother, were burning documents from Brandy Pearson's car business. Now, if you know anything about Brandy Pearson, she's already been in trouble for tax evasion or fraud or something to the sort of in relation to her car business. Her car lot is like a 45-second jog from this 305 Albany Street. That's how in close proximity all of this is happening. She owns multiple rentals within that neighborhood, and they're all within, a couple minute walking distance to her car business. But on January the 27th, the fire department in Indianapolis was called out to put out this massive fire that Roan and Brandy had started in the backyard at 305 Albany Street, burning the documents from her car business, her car lot business. Fire department came out, put the fire out, took 2 hoses to extinguish this fire, and then they left. Within 11 to 15 minutes from them leaving, Roan and Brandy had reignited this fire and were continuing to burn documents. The fire department was then called out a second time to put this fire out. And at that time, not only the fire department was there, but the police arrived. Here we go with the whole Roan and the behavior and the disrespect when law enforcement is around, standing on the front porch of Albany Street, screaming at the police and the fire department to leave, and how they caused such issues basically for putting out the fire before, and now he had to reignite it and all of these things. He got very irate and upset with them being there. We have asked over and over and over again. We've had multiple people try to request the body cam footage, the report log, the police report log, any of the fire information for that specific date. And we've been consistently told no, or it's not available, or we don't have it. The police never did, to our understanding, check his identity. For somebody screaming like that, I would think that they would maybe possibly want to detain him. We've never seen or heard that any type of ticket was issued to Brandy or Roan for violating city code and starting a fire in city limits. It all just seems to be missing. So this is a big thing for us. Like right now, we can say once again, at that time, Madison and the children were right there underneath the noses of the police, and nothing was done. There was no checkup, no check-in, no nothing, no questioning, Roan's erratic behavior, and no fines as far as we can find, because nobody wants to give us the information. that there was no fine given to Brandy for doing what she did.
And you know what? That's probably somewhere in here. Maybe when I was dropping in my slits of the probable cause affidavit in between your statements, I moved it because I know you gave that to me. So, but the reason that's important, guys, is because here the police are called out to that home where Oakley would be murdered on February 9th. But on January 27th, you have the fire department as well as the police department who have to be called to that same home because of this fire. And so the police they're having trouble with him acting irate and doing all that stuff from information you received, Christine. And the police don't get the ID and stuff from ROAN at the time. And the reason that's important, guys, is because if they would have checked ROAN's ID on January 27th when they went to the home because of him acting irate for the fire department coming out and putting out the fire that they were doing, then they would have seen that he was wanted out of Oklahoma for the abuse of Oakley and even Madison for those charges, and he would have been arrested and taken out of that home. So that's what the other, another opportunity was, that Oakley could have been taken away from him, that it would have not happened on February 9th. So we'll probably end up finding that info in here somewhere off. But so now we get to February 9th of 2023, and a lot of stuff happens on February 9th. So let me warn everybody, there's a big chunk here. So on February 9th, Oakley was murdered at the hands of her known abuser, but no one knew that at the time. That same day, Oakley's brother was handed over to Department of Child Services, DCS, in Indianapolis, Indiana, after Roan Waters called his mother, Brandy Pearson, and she got in contact with his sister, Kiona Waters, and they retrieved Oakley's brother from the trap house where he was left abandoned. Let it be known that Kiona later saw Roan and Madison return to the house on Albany Street without Oakley, but she once again did nothing. She didn't attempt to speak to them or question them about Oakley's whereabouts. According to Kiona Waters, she reported to DCS DCS when she turned Oakley's little brother over to them that Oakley was supposed to have been dropped off at a local hospital anonymously because she had been hurt. At this time, Oakley should have been considered a missing child and in danger. Oakley now qualified for a silver alert, at least, more likely an amber alert. Now, here comes the shocker. They never issued one for her in Indiana either. She was not issued when this is now all happening, and Indiana police know it. There is not one issued on February 9th. Let's see. Continued. A little bit of additional information for this day. This is going to blow your guys' minds. It is in the probable cause affidavit as well. Most all of this is. A 911 call was placed and got disconnected before that they could answer. But the 911 operator was able to call back, but didn't receive an answer. The police were never called out to investigate the abandoned 911 call. So that should blow everybody's mind. If I sat here and told you that a phone call, the police get a phone call, they see it's a hang up from 911, what do all of you assume happens when a 911 call is disconnected like that, right? So obviously they did make a phone call back to that number, but nobody answered that. So then you automatically, as a civilian, assume that a police car would be called out to the scene to make sure that everything's okay because nobody answered the phone. Well, they called back and nobody answered the phone, and they didn't send anybody, guys. And this was when Madison does say in the probable cause affidavit that when Roan hit Oakley, or threw her, trying to remember how they worded it in the probable cause exactly.
Yeah, they don't even actually say. There's nothing in there that says what actually took place that caused the harm to Oakley.
But that is when,
death.
But Madison did try to make a 911 call and states that Roan hit the phone out of her hand to prevent her from calling 911.
Yes.
And then she's not able to call 911 because she hits that out of her hand. And then that's what happens. Operators call back. Nobody answers. They don't send police.
Yes. Roan, if you read the affidavit in full, it does state, how, Roan was standing over Oakley in the living room, screaming at her to bounce and bounce and bounce on the bouncy ball. And Madison tried to, correct him and explain to him that, she's little and, she's, Oakley, she was not even 2 yet, so she didn't understand. Madison apparently goes back into the kitchen. I have seen the layout of the Albany Street house. I have actually seen it. I did not physically enter it, but I did see it through a video call. And when you enter the home, you enter into the front area, which is a living room, and it's laid kind of, left to right. It doesn't go deep in it. The layout is kind of left to right. And then you enter into kind of what would potentially be a dining room. And then from that point, you enter into what would be kind of a hallway area. And then you have to turn right and go down this hallway. And then at the very end of this hallway on the left is the kitchen. So from where the situation took place in the living room compared to where Madison was in the kitchen, I could see where it might be hard to hear what's taking place in the living room. So Roan comes running down the hallway screaming for Madison, and she meets him partially in the hallway. And he initially says, "I didn't do it. I didn't do anything," is what he was stating. And then Madison states that, she can see that Oakley's attempting to breathe, but all that's coming out of her mouth is, gurgling blood. And, Oakley's not coherent at the time. And then they do attempt to take Oakley to the bathroom and submerge her in cold water. I'm sorry, give me a minute.
It's all right. Take your time.
Then they submerge her in cold water to attempt to revive her. And when the attempt fails, that's when they take her into the room and try to call 911. And then he knocks the phone out of her hand. And we kind of, if you read the affidavit, we kind of know what seems to take place from there.
Okay. You all right? You okay?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. Let me read a little further what happens that day. Nowhere is it stated or known if DCS ever reported to the police about Oakley. If they did, why didn't they do a welfare check at the home? If they didn't, then Oakley was failed by DCS as they should have been reported immediately. ROAN is tipped off by Kiona and ROAN is tipped off by Kiona that Oakley's baby brother has been turned over to DCS, and they were likely going to come to the house. So ROAN and Madison pack up and leave the Albany Street, Indianapolis location. Late that evening, at approximately 11 p.m., IMPD began knocking on neighbors' doors to ask if they have seen children at the Albany Street, Indianapolis, Indiana house. Even without locating Oakley, an Amber Alert was still not issued. So, but let's point this out. So ROAN's sister gives the little brother to DCS. She does tell them that they said they took Oakley to a hospital because she was hurt, right? They tell him that they came back without her. The police start going next door, neighbors' houses and stuff like that, asking about it. Have you seen two children? La, 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 la. But even after this point, with only one of the two children in hand, and that there's the report out of Oklahoma of these two children, there is still not an Amber Alert issued in Indiana, which all of this that we just went through, Christine is pointing out the third, fourth, and fifth time that Oakley was failed. And it's really unbelievable, honestly, that this many errors happens for a little girl that they should be trying to locate. This is a piece from the probable cause affidavit that confirms the outgoing call to 911 on February 9th at 1:43 p.m. And it just talks about that the IMPD dispatch determined that the call was disconnected before an operator could answer. The operator quickly attempted to call that number back, but there was no answer or a return call. Now, I want us to stop right there. I know there's a last sentence right here. I want you to ignore this next sentence because it has nothing to do with what the hell I just read. It jumps to this last sentence. So again, IMPD dispatch, a call was disconnected before the operator answers. Operator quickly attempts to call the number back. There is no answer. There is no return call. So what do they jump to the next sentence? It says, furthermore, there was no collected location history for that number between the hours of 2:30 p.m. and 4:30 p.m. that day. The reason that's important, and correct me if I'm wrong, Christine, that's because that's when they turned off their phones because they were out hiding Oakley's body.
Yes, that's correct.
So we jump in this probable cause affidavit from talking how the dispatch knows the phone number that called. They quickly try to attempt to call it back, but they didn't answer and they didn't call back. So that's it. It doesn't say, oh, we decided to send cops. We decided to not do this. Nothing. So then the only other next thing that they're going to tell us is, well, then their phones were the phones are disconnected and not being able to be located. And again, it tells you between outgoing calls, they have all the history in the probable cause affidavit. Again, I will do a thing just strictly going through all of the probable cause affidavit info with each of you, because it does have a lot of details and information. Most is correct. Christine feels that there is some stuff that's some wrong in here. about timing and dates and some things that they didn't even know at the time.
Yeah, I think that I really appreciate you stopping there and saying, like, that is not, that furthermore statement has absolutely nothing to do with that 911 call. They smushed all of that together to make it look like, oh, this is my opinion, to make it look like they, there was no way to track the location of where that 911 call came from. But, that right there shows that, 2:30 p.m. is not 1:43 p.m. We're almost an entire hour later before that cell phone gets turned off. So why was somebody not dispatched?
Right.
And if they were, then why is that not in there? If they were, then why were they able to get away with going and hiding Oakley's body?
Absolutely. So obviously this happens. They go out, and on February, make sure I didn't jump ahead. There we go. Okay. February 9th through the 27th. So we've got Roan and Madison leave Indianapolis, Indiana. And that night, right? That night, but before the police are looking door to door, talking to people, and they head back to Oklahoma to Michelle Wagner's home to pick up a camper. Now, remember, Michelle Wagner's home is where they were when the phone call happened about the report, and where the incident happened that Oakley was first hit and Madison was hit. Correct, Christine?
Yes, back in October, where the abuse had taken place. Madison and the children were at Michelle Wagner's house when the abuse took place.
Okay. So when they get there, they're going to go there to pick up a camper. They leave there heading towards Kansas. So in Harper County, Kansas, a tire blows out on the camper. On February 12th, Harper County police officer sees the camper on the side of the road, but does not call it in at the time. However, when he sees the camper, when he gets back on duty on February 14th, and he still discovers it abandoned, he goes in it, checks it. There's marijuana paraphernalia in it, and it is towed with transferred title going to the towing company. So then we get to February 27th of 2023. This is when Roan is arrested at a Best Western in, okay, help me out with that one.
Arapahoe.
See, I never get them right. Arapahoe, Colorado, by Greenwood Village Police Department on the outstanding warrants that stemmed from the abuse charges back in October of 2022 in Oklahoma. Madison was with him at the time, but it stated that there was no reason to detain her. So there wasn't anything, guys, nothing to keep her.
So I want to point a few things out here, if it's okay with you.
Yeah, go ahead.
So if you look at the affidavit, it states that Roan was arrested on March the 3rd, and that is not correct. That's why I went in here and I stated it's February 27th. That is a huge, huge mistake to have that March 3rd date in there, because nothing else from that point lines up. So it is February the 27th that he was arrested. What else? And the reason I say that is because we get to talking here in a minute about when Brindle and his wife come and get Madison and the Durango from Colorado. If Roan wasn't arrested until the 3rd of March, then the date doesn't line up. So it's really important. There's a lot of things, and I understand that this is what they consider a probable cause affidavit, but the amount of mistakes that are in this, including one of Madison's original charges related to the youngest child, and his abandonment at the trap house, that charge is dated February 1st. How could she have something on February 1st when nothing took place until February 9th? It's just, when you're talking about a murder case and utilizing this information to,
get a conviction.
plead your point and get a conviction, it needs to be absolutely 100% spot on. And why am I, as just an everyday single individual, over here finding all of these inaccuracies? The camper was a massive piece while Oakley was missing, because the concern was, did they take the camper? Did they take her in the camper? And did they abandon the camper somewhere? Is she with the camper somewhere? We didn't know.
Right.
And the fact that that was never pursued, it literally took me having one conversation with somebody and then me making one phone call, and I knew exactly where that camper was. The police officer called me back, gave me all the specific dates, the information on the marijuana paraphernalia in there. Why are we sitting here and having to do all this legwork? Why are we having to be the ones to come out here and make all these corrections to the things that are wrong and the things that are missing? Why am I having to turn over documentation that I've obtained because they never bothered to investigate, people that harbored Madison while she was in North Carolina? Those people were never brought in for questioning. Madison's items were never retrieved from that property. Why are we having to do all that legwork?
And everybody needs to remember that at this time, the whole family is still looking for Oakley. No, when you find out that he is arrested in Colorado, then the concern and worry is nobody knows where she is. They don't know if she could be in one state or the other. Then they're thinking between, because I know, our justice warriors got involved when we were doing the candle, we were doing the prayer vigil for her, which was in March, because we were still trying to get answers and stuff for you guys of that this wasn't in the news. There was nothing posted, and we'll be getting up to this till March 8th in Indianapolis, that even that little girl was even thought to be missing in Indianapolis and wanting information, because nothing had come out from that. So you guys are still looking for where Oakley could be, wondering in all of these states, because they went from Oklahoma to Indiana. Now he's arrested in Colorado, having no clue and idea where all of this is. And during this time, Christine, you want to share with everybody that you guys had been trying to contact people in Indianapolis to get answers from them, from authorities and all that type of thing?
Absolutely. We're reaching out. We've got people on foot in Indianapolis. They're hanging flyers on a daily basis. They're going on foot. We're in communication. They're looking in certain areas for us. These are people who were actually threatened for hanging flyers and, quote unquote, sticking their nose in places it doesn't belong. They're getting kicked out of convenience markets for hanging flyers. And, we're holding as many of these, podcasts that anybody would hear. Because, as you know, nobody's from IMPD is saying anything about Oakley. They're not saying anything. They're not, from our understanding and our knowledge, there's no action being taken on their end, at least nothing that seemed proactive to find Oakley. And so as her family and friends, we were getting on any news station and any YouTube channel that would hear her story, just trying to spread the word and bring awareness to the fact that she was even missing.
Yeah. And I want to say, because I maybe that's on the same slide. They're also in here. The contact that they had is that before Madison and them sat here and took off, they contacted Zach Snow and had said that they left Oakley at a hospital in Indianapolis, and that was all that was told. But obviously now not publicly, but the police were trying to see if Oakley had been dropped off at a hospital. And of course, right away, they knew that there was not a child, a just under 2-year-old child, that was dropped off anywhere or found anywhere at any hospital. So, they already knew that. So, they knew that. Then suddenly they have them saying that Oakley's not with them because supposedly they dropped off Oakley at a hospital.
And
So,
I know it's been said that, Kiana, did her part, and she says that she called all the hospitals looking for Oakley and didn't get any information. No, there was no missing child. It doesn't matter because it was too late. At the end of the day, Kiana Waters, Brandy Pearson, Brindle Waters, they all knew of the physical, atrocious abuse that Oakley had endured at the hands of ROAN from the time that they had gotten her in January until the day that he murdered her, and none of them did a thing. Not one of them called Division of Family Services. Not one of them reported it to the police. It was said that they attempted to talk to ROAN and Madison, and then Brindle and ROAN apparently had some sort of falling out and argument over the abuse a day or two leading up to when Oakley was murdered on February 9th. But Brindle did nothing. So I know that a lot of people say, well, they weren't directly involved, but they were directly involved because Indiana is a mandatory report state. It is their responsibility to report abuse like that. And then as we'll go on, we'll see here that they are very much involved with the cover up and the hiding of the entire situation. So we as Oakley's family are sitting here today and asking, these people are named. They are outright named in this affidavit about being involved, and they are still walking free. There's been no arrest on any of them for what their part was in this.
So it takes us, and this stuff is in the probable cause affidavit. So here where it says March 2nd of 2023, Brandy Pearson flew Brindle Waters and his wife, Debbie Waters, out to Colorado to get Madison and bring her and the blue Dodge Durango back to Indianapolis, Indiana. So I do want to point out the blue Dodge Durango is the vehicle that was driven from Oklahoma to Indiana, correct?
Yes.
By ROAN.
Uh-huh.
And so when they went to hide Oakley, was in the blue Dodge Durango?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So then the blue Dodge Durango is what vehicle they used to take off back out of Indiana on the day that Oakley is killed. They go back to Oklahoma because they're getting a camper.
Mm-hmm.
They get the camper. Camper has a tire that's blown out on that, but they still have the blue Dodge Durango.
Yep.
They get to Colorado where ROAN is arrested. There's nothing showing that they need to arrest Madison.
Mm-hmm.
So then Brandy flies Brindle and Debbie out to get Madison and to bring that blue Dodge Durango back out to Indianapolis.
Yep.
Okay. So then we're at March 3rd. Madison arrives at Kiana Waters' house and ask if she can stay. Kiona informed her that she can stay if she tells her where Oakley is. Madison does not tell her and leaves on foot. Please note at some point in this time, Madison and Brandy Pearson connect, and Madison tells Brandy that Roan killed Oakley. Brandy Pearson states that Roan had just gotten out of prison and that she wasn't going to allow Madison to put him back in it. Is that info inside the probable cause that it is there, or is that from Brandy stating that herself to the police? Or
It's in the probable cause.
okay,
I believe there by Madison in the probable cause statement.
that she told the police, she told Brandy this.
Yeah, but we also have to already remember that Brandy's known all along. So this, you know, I mean, yes, it's important. Yes, it fits in there, but let's remember about the extreme amount of phone calls exchanged between Roan's number and Brandy's number during the time that Oakley, lay dying in the Albany Street home, and then, being taken to the abandoned home and left.
Yep. So when we continue on that March 3rd, so the
Ofusky.
Thank you. County Sheriff's Department in Oklahoma requests assistance from Greenwood Village Police Department in Colorado in interviewing Roan Waters about the disappearance of the children. So then on March 4th, Brenda Waters picks Madison up on a local street and takes her to a Greyhound bus station. This was after Brandy Pearson bought Madison a phone and told her not to use it until after she was on the bus heading to North Carolina. Brindle pays cash for Madison's bus ticket, and Madison departs to North Carolina using the alias Madison Lewis. So on March 6th of 2023, remember guys, February 9th is when Oakley was murdered. November of 2022 is when Oakley was first abused. I'm sorry, October of 2022 is when she's first abused. November, the first part of November is when a warrant is issued for Roan. January is when, we know they take off and it's reported that she's missing. Now here we are to March 6th. So the FBI, after hearing of Roan's interview with the GVPD in Colorado, believe that Oakley and her little brother to be in extreme danger and requests the FBI's assistance in locating them. The FBI reaches out to DFS in Marion County, Indiana, and they inform them that Kiona had turned Oakley's brother over to them on February 9th of 2023. And that this is almost a month later, people, and that it had been reported that Oakley had been taken to a hospital. They informed the FBI that Oakley's dad had picked Oakley's little brother up earlier that day and had likely returned to Oklahoma. This is March 6th that finally the police are contacting the Greenwood Village Police in Colorado are contacting IMPD and then also with the FBI, and that they need assistance to try to locate where these kids are. It just, this is a picture of the bus ticket copies that Christine had that she shared with us of the purchase of that and with the alias name that Madison was using. So please note that the DFS of Marion County, Indiana did not report to the police the fact that Oakley was taken to a hospital per what Kiona Waters had told them back on February 9th. No welfare check was done at the Albany Street address. No follow-up whatsoever. So on March 7th of 2023, a search warrant is issued and done on the 305 Albany Street, Indianapolis, Indiana location, where Roan and Madison were staying with the kids. March 7th. Okay, so this date's what means something to me. So March 8th of 2023, after Roan Waters was arrested in Colorado and Madison Marshall was already in North Carolina, that's when IMPD decided to seek assistance from the public in locating Oakley and Madison. Media release of missing Oakley Snow to Indianapolis media was done. An entire month after Oakley's brother was turned over to DCS in Indiana, did IMPD actually start really looking for Oakley? And let me tell you why this date means something to me. March 8th is when I first saw the local news show the one and only report about this missing, they kept the missing 2-year-old girl in Indianapolis, Indiana, reporting that it was stated that she was dropped off at an Indianapolis hospital, that the police had not been able to verify anything from that. And that was at the time that I first heard of this case, was wondering why there was so little about this case that had even popped up. And when I was like, you know what, I'm going to do something about this case, because I was like, this little girl's missing. Why aren't they doing any more? And that at that March 8th was when I took that info and I did first a piece just to say that she was missing. And I didn't know any of the other details at the time, other than I did know, the mom and all this kind of stuff. And that I had found out just by Googling it, it wasn't reported here, that I had just found out after that date that suddenly she had been arrested. And so after the March 8th, and I did that first story from then, that's later when I reached out. And then a couple of weeks later, we did the prayer vigil here to try to create awareness of, we were trying to look for where Oakley was, because we didn't know anything from that. So then on March 16th is when they first issued this warrant for Madison Marshall for arrest of neglect of a dependent. But that first charge is for Oakley's little brother. Correct, Christine?
Yeah, it's for the abandonment in the trap house.
So then we get to March 23rd, and this is when Madison Marshall is arrested in North Carolina. And I just found that she was arrested. There wasn't much and stuff out there. And I think by that point I had already made contact with you guys that I wanted to try to do something. You guys were planning a candlelight vigil in Oklahoma, and we wanted to try to help you here in Indiana. And that's why, like, okay, let's try to do a prayer vigil. And we were trying to work on that. And so it's got here, you have, please note this entire time since Oakley was last seen, Oakley's family and friends are searching for her. We're hanging flyers. We have people on foot looking for her. We're contacting the news media and doing interviews with news stations and creators on social media platforms. We're getting run out of businesses for hanging up flyers, and some are even threatened by Waters Pearson family. So on April 20th of 2023, Madison Marshall is finally extradited to Indiana from North Carolina. Look at that gap of time, guys, just right there. March 23rd to April 20th. That's ridiculous.
Again, as you can see, it's basically a month. It seems to be a month between all the time throughout this whole case. I think we can step back to March 8th really quick. Roan's picture was never posted with Madison's and Oakley on the news. It was just Madison and Oakley's picture. No silver alert was issued. No amber alert was issued. So can we also say that, what would that be, the sixth time that Oakley was failed? Because really she qualified for that amber alert back on February 9th. Then she qualified again for it on March 8th when they were seeking the assistance of the public to find her. Obviously, they already knew that because of the conversations between the Greenwood Village Police Department in Colorado, Oklahoma, Seminole County in Oklahoma, and Ofuskee County in Oklahoma, and IMPD, like they already knew that Roan was under arrest. So in being held in Colorado, they already knew at that point that Madison had been with him in Colorado. They already knew at that point that they didn't detain Madison for any reason in Colorado. So why at that point on the 8th of March was an amber alert not issued?
Because they knew that neither one of the children were with them, period.
Absolutely. They had confirmation at that point that the baby had been returned to his father, and that, Roan was under arrest, that Madison was with him. No children were with them at the hotel at that time. Where are these, where is Oakley? And, again, nothing was issued.
So, and at this time, so by this point, you and I are already talking, and a few other family members and acquaintances of yours that as I reached out to say, hey, I'll help you do something here in Indiana, and connected. And I won't say her name because she hasn't said I could say her name, so I won't. But another wonderful person who had been running around Indianapolis, posting things and doing things and stuff, who also was helping. And so, but when I was talking to you guys, you were all trying to, one, work with Oklahoma police, who were basically like acting like, okay, well, this isn't our case. They're acting like, this case is Indianapolis's case, not theirs.
Yes.
And not answering questions, not doing anything. You guys are calling IMPD. You're not getting information back. The Zach, the father, biological father, is not getting information back or calls back about what is going on at the time. And so, and I know from my own experience that I had even reached out when we were doing the prayer vigil and media a release to try to get people to come out to it and to try to get some answers, and hopefully the news involved, that they would get answers from IMPD what's going on. And the IMPD missing persons would not call back. And then finally, when a callback came, they just gave a phone number for a public information officer. And when I called the public information officer myself to say, hey, this is going on, we know that news and stuff is going to be there. We want to make sure we're reporting everything correctly of what's going on to date. Mind you guys, there's a lot of info here, hindsight, that the family didn't know. We didn't know what was going on. And there was just no response back. So then right after we did that prayer vigil on that Tuesday, then it was on that Friday before information came out that you saw on the news. I know I saw on the news that suddenly revealed that police believe OAKLEE'S body is in Indiana.
Yes.
And that was a shocker that information even came out. It came out that way. and then it came out to the news first. And then, like, almost immediately after that happened, suddenly there's a report of a body being found in Boone County, and they're not saying who it is, but there is a news station who is already jumping the gun, and they're already relating those two stories together in the Indianapolis media.
Yes.
Which I'm going to say for myself, it happened to be a media station who didn't even show up to the prayer vigil to cover when Oakley was a missing little girl.
Correct.
But they were jumping on the opportunity to be the first to report that they believe that her body's left and she's murdered, and here's this found and it could be her. And they're connecting those two stories. So when we look at this date, we get to the April 21st of 2023, where Oakley's dad was informed that they had found Oakley's body on April 21st. They failed to inform him of all of the graphic details of how they found Oakley. So, but he ends up finding out because IMPD released information about how she was found. Correct?
Yes. So, let's rewind a minute. We're going to go back to the date of Madison's arrest, March the 23rd.
Okay.
We spoke to Madison the day after she was arrested. She called us from jail, and we asked her, where is Oakley? And she explained to us then. Nobody knows that. That we, as Oakley's family, well, my husband and myself, were given that information by Madison through a phone call. And it's hard to be in a situation like that where you're crying out for media coverage and anybody to help look for her, but to not say that, unfortunately, that the outcome's not going to be good. And so we had to just keep pressing forward and pray, that we would find her sooner rather than later. We didn't know at that time any of the details about what had really taken place that day at Albany Street. We didn't have details specifically about where Oakley's body was. The information was very, very vague, and it was not truthful, unfortunately. So at that point, my husband and I spent just sleepless days and countless hours combing through information and reaching out to these law enforcement agencies and providing them any information that we had and all the information that we had collected by that point, and only to be treated with complete disrespect. We were never given a family advocate from the very beginning, and we should have been, but we weren't. And it took, I can tell you, I personally was on the phone with a deputy in Martinsville, Indiana, the night that they had all the tornadoes out there. I think that was the 24th of March. Might have been the 25th. All those days blur into one at that point.
Yeah.
But I was on the phone with them speaking to him and informing him, like, I need you to not just focus on, a forest or a wooded area or somebody's piece of property. I'm getting information that it could potentially be, an abandoned property on this property or an abandoned property near this property. We had also been told by somebody that uh, potentially she was buried in a family cemetery. Like, you have to understand our family's uh, situation. We're doing everything we can to try to inform law enforcement of all the information that we're getting, and nobody's listening. Now, that deputy that I spoke to that night was very kind, and he informed me that they had been out on this piece of property in Martinsville um, uh, the day before and that day, and that they were going to actually bring in cadaver dogs the next day. And then I believe that was, the night that they had the bad storms and the tornadoes out there. I mean, and so we're sitting here the whole time just left, like, not knowing anything. At that point, it took me forever to reach Nicholas Hubbs, which at the time was Oakley's missing persons detective that was assigned to the case. He's the one who wrote the affidavit that you're reading right now. And, you know, the thing I'll say is that after I hung up the phone with that man, never in my life had I felt more deflated, because we were basically told that, Madison was an adult and he didn't have to talk to us, and he wasn't really going to talk to us. And, maybe after it's all over, said and done, then, maybe he'll tell us something. But we were very, very much dismissed. And after we had worked so hard to gather the information that we had gathered, to just be dismissed in the way that we were, really just, it sunk us. It was really, really hard from that point on, because at that point then it was really just a sit and wait game, because nobody would answer our phone calls. Nobody would take the additional information we were getting. I've collected a lot of information since then. I've reached out many, many, many times trying to provide this information. These things that I've provided to you, the copies of the, bus information and all of that, and lots of other information that I've now recently been able to turn over, because I finally got a hold of somebody who seemed like they actually cared to listen. All of it's been turned over, but to sit here and to be dismissed the way that we were dismissed over and over again, when all we're doing was trying to bring Oakley home, it's a feeling I can't describe. And then it was just a sit and wait game until April 21st, when they found Oakley's body, when Madison led them to Oakley's body and finally told the truth about where she was. And it was hard.
I remember from the news of hearing all of a sudden the station that said, oh, the police believe this, which I was shocked by. And, the next part of them, stating that they found a body out in Boone County, without them being descriptive or whatever, and them saying they needed to be able to do, and, basically get the body to the coroner to verify who it was and that type of thing. And one, I knew at the time I didn't want to believe it, and I definitely didn't want to send that to you, when it was happening, but obviously people sent it to you right away because you also had media that was calling you while you just find out that they found Oakley's body.
Yeah, we had media out, which was, I'm glad that they were wanting to cover Oakley's story, but where were you? Where were
Right.
you when she was missing, and when we were begging for somebody to cover her story, to give her 30 seconds of airtime. And yeah, we shut down. We didn't speak. We really went quiet from Friday until we made the announcement on Wednesday of the following week. And that story and how that all took place. But on Monday, Friday was the 21st, the 24th of April, Monday, I had gotten a hold of, Madison left the scene on Friday with a new charge, which is this one here, that her and Roan are co-defendants on. That this the initial probable cause affidavit, which is 16 pages long, was written up and presented and entered in on Monday morning, or over the weekend, I'm not sure when. Monday morning we go in, we get the documentation, not knowing what's in this case, because we don't really, it's so new. This case number is so new. We don't really know what it's about. Like, we don't really have any understanding of it, right? It doesn't state murder. It didn't state any of that in the case in the beginning. So we didn't know. We get a hold of the document. We start reading it, and that's when we saw the extremely graphic details of, the leading up to finding Oakley's body, and then finding Oakley's body, and the state that she was in. That it's 16 pages. We've never released it. Nobody else has it. I did go ahead and release it today. And the reason I did is because we have the 26-page one, and there's a lot of differences between this 16-page document. I'm not going to say a lot. There are things in the 16-page document that aren't in the 26-page document, and vice versa. So it is in Oakley's group page, which is on Facebook, which is it's all capital letters. It's Justice, the number 4, Oakley Snow. That is Oakley's official group. And if anybody is interested in going in there and reading those documents, being a part of Oakley's journey, we would absolutely love to have you. Please, join the group, and we're happy to have you and try to answer any questions we can. But I went ahead and posted it today because I felt it was important to call out some of the differences that we see in those two affidavits. But it was graphic, and no family should have had to have found out by obtaining a document that should have never been released to the public. And we know that the one that was released on that Wednesday, the 26-page one, the one we're looking at today, we know that it clearly states confidential in
Right.
red bold letters. These affidavits should have been sealed. None of that information, there's a lot of information in there that was not redacted, that should have been redacted. And, no family should have ever found out about the gruesome details in the form that we found out about that. And then, like we said, we tried from Monday all the way to Wednesday, our family did, to reach anybody from IMPD. I called Doug Carter's office. He's the superintendent of Indiana State Police. I tried to reach out to him. I know that he's a big child advocate there, and I tried to reach him and get him to seal the document, the affidavit, the 16-page one. Of course, it was late in the afternoon, and unfortunately, I wasn't able to reach him in time. By the time that somehow somebody let this 26-pager slip to the news media, that's who got a hold of it first. The news media got a hold of the 26-page affidavit, and that's when everything kind of blew up on that Wednesday, and they literally started calling and texting and messaging and sending their links to what they had started to already report out, and about it being Oakley and everything else. And it really put our family in a really, really bad situation. And we waited, for IMPD to come out and make a press release to notify the public, because this information had been let out the way that it had been let out. Obviously, you can't deny the facts in an affidavit. But nobody stepped up. Nobody went public on behalf of the family. We were left in a situation that no family should ever have to be left in, to go out there and have to inform the world that, in fact, it was Oakley's body. Not only that, let's talk about the fact of all the details that were in there. Nobody wants anybody questioning them on that and how they feel about that, because how do you feel on that? How do you feel about reading it and finding out that way? It's just so many failures, so many pieces that are missing, or that had been missing all through this, until that's why we're doing what we're doing right now, is to try to put those missing pieces back in there, so that people have a better understanding of all the failures that took place for Oakley, because we get a lot of questions about that. Why are you blaming the police? Why are you blaming the police? You were Madison's parent, or, why didn't you, step in? Well, we never knew of any of this stuff going on. And had we, yeah, we would have been right there. We would have most certainly stepped in, but we weren't aware of any of that. And it makes it a little bit hard, hindsight's 2020.
Well, and the other thing that you're trying to do is, obviously, Oakley Snow's case is not done.
No.
Justice has not been served yet for Oakley. We don't have Madison in court. We don't have ROAN in court. We're going to bring all that information to you guys here in a second, but that stuff's not done. And so, to make sure that justice is served for Oakley, this is what you guys are trying to do. Trying to make sure that awareness, and from that standpoint, also just trying to correct all of these errors that need to be corrected, so it doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
And, that's when you're looking at, obviously it brought a lot of awareness to people about the law if you are unwed and have a child out of wedlock in Oklahoma, and what the laws are. That was an eye opener for a lot of people who didn't know that. What was the difference between an Amber Alert and a Silver Alert for children? And then what is the disconnect from one not being issued in Oklahoma and then one not being issued here in Indiana? So, yeah, you know what I mean? It's just crazy that, all of that in there. And I know that when you were telling me that, when you found out, and the emotional reaction that you had, and kind of did a little quick Facebook Live talking about that at the time, and how emotionally it affected me. And even people, even media that was trying to contact me after the fact, that it was like, some of them, they didn't even reach out when we're trying to find out where this missing little girl is. And they did not contact us. Now there were some news stations, thank God, and a newspaper who came out and did a story and did get information and stuff out there, but they weren't all showing up. And it was very emotional, because this is one of the first cases that I really reached out to and felt so compelled to do something. And at the time of the emotions, for like probably the 3 days after that, I'm amazed of what people will go watch cases that are popular cases. And when people do true crime, of course, they cover cases that you have interest in or anything like that. I'll just throw out there the Delphi case as an example. Now, Delphi is also important to me because, I'm here in Indiana. And those are two little girls that has happened to in Indiana. And I care about that. And I'm curious about that. And I'm worried about that for people who are parents or grandparents here. But when you do missing kids, a lot of people will just get used to that. They see missing kids and they just come complacent with, it's another post about somebody missing. And I think I mentioned to you that I jotted something down and wrote something because of that emotional time. But I want to read that to you and to the group.
Absolutely.
And first of all, I hated English class, and I was not a poem writer. So if it sucks, please take that in consideration, people. But it was a little message thing. It says, and I'm going to try not to get emotional. You see my face and now know my name. Please don't scroll past me. You read my family's plea and details of last seen. Please don't scroll past me. You see how many days I've been gone, which for any mother is way too long. Please don't scroll past me. After this, you will move on, but I am still gone. Please don't scroll past me. It takes only a minute to care, but even less time to share. Please don't scroll past me. And I wrote that because there's a lot of people who didn't pay attention to this case when we were just looking for Oakley. And many more because she's gone now. And so I wrote that from me just having those feelings of how many people watch a missing person's case or missing child's case or see a missing picture in a Facebook and you just scroll past it.
Yeah.
And people need to share it. So I wanted to share that with you. So
I appreciate you sharing that. And it's you wrote it perfectly. We all become complacent and we just, unfortunately, and this is the unfortunate part, missing children are the norm in the United States. It's the norm. And we become complacent and we accept it. And that's not okay. Oakley should still be here today. And because she's not, we will ensure that her name is never forgotten. We will ensure that the justice will be served for her, for all involved. At the end of the day, we have to be her voice because she never got one.
right.
And we have to be not only her voice, but we have to be the voice for the other children of America, because it's not acceptable. The Amber Alert criteria, Amber's mom never meant for, you know, this to be so stipulated and have so many, you know, stipulations to who qualifies and who doesn't. This was meant for all children. And yes, I understand that there's a lot of things that are in place too, like, and a lot of things you have to think about, like, you know, civil matters is what they like to call them, and things like that. But at the end of the day, the criteria for the Amber Alert needs to change. We should not have almost 500,000 missing children in America right now and 1,600 Amber Alerts. That's not okay. It's not okay. We're failing our children, and you know, that's what we're here for. You know, Oakley's story isn't over. Her name will continue to be shouted, and we will continue to do what needs to be done to ensure that there's change in America for other children, and that families don't have to go through this. No family should be in the situation that our family was in. They really shouldn't.
Right.
And that's not just, you know, for missing children. That's advocacy, you know, for families who are going through this. People don't understand what this is like because you may have never been in it, but when you're in it, you don't even know what to do. Like, you literally are here every single day, just you're kind of floating along. This is not something people should go through, and then it's not something that people would ever go through twice. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like you know what the next move is or what you're supposed to be doing, or we're literally treading water, and we were just floating by trying to do whatever we thought was the right thing to do next, because there's no advocacy. Like, we want to help families who might be in this potential situation in the future, because how do you navigate these waters? It's brand new. And
Well,
it's
and you guys were
scary.
out of state, so you're not even in the same
Yeah,
state where she was.
exactly.
And the people who are supposed to be investigating it, because the Oklahoma police were not giving answers and saying it was IMPD, then you're trying to get answers from a state you didn't live in and trying to get news coverage from a state you didn't live in, which is one of the reasons that, you know, we tried to step up and to try to get some media coverage, you know, to find out what the heck is going on.
Well,
Why do we not know anything?
that was a huge part of it. A lot of it was like, well, it's Seminole County because that's where she's missing from. No, it's IMPD because that's who has the case now. You know, it was people didn't even know where to go to even try to provide information because nobody wanted it. It was like we were literally left with information, but well, I can get it over there, but really it's not our jurisdiction, it's theirs. And then you hear the same thing from the other side, and it's like, you know, in the meantime, Oakley's missing. So who's going to take the information? Who's going to step up, and who's going to do the right thing and help us find her? That was all we cared about. Just somebody take the responsibility and start taking action.
And you were trying to get a hold of IMPD or anybody to try to kind of hold a press conference to give an update on Oakley, what was going on with the case, that this all, because all of this stuff was also coming at you guys to answer all the questions from the media, whether Oklahoma or Indiana. They were all coming to you because there was no like media press conference of them saying what happened, what was going on, the arrests that were made, anything like that. It was just stuff that turned around and basically they gave to, in my opinion, one news station to release. And then suddenly they blurted out a whole bunch of stuff that you couldn't believe was out there. And then suddenly all the other stations started picking up on it at the time.
Yep. And the headlines alone were enough to make you cringe. So, but yeah, you know, we were left in that position to just, I feel like, figure it out. Like, nobody wanted to be responsible from the very beginning. It was shuffled between this jurisdiction and this jurisdiction. And then when it came down to it, and the notification of, the fact that yes, it was Oakley, once again, we were left standing there saying, who's going to step up and make the announcement? It should have never been left up to family to do that. I've never in my life heard of any other case where the family was it was left up to the family to make that statement.
Right. Right. And to this day, we're pointing out here on the screen, we showed the updates, the additional charges, as Christine shared. Madison's original court date was paused and delayed and moved to that following week. The reason it moved to that following week was because the additional charges and stuff were added after she led them to where Oakley's body was. And, they did keep saying that even though after they were adding the charges and stuff to her, they didn't officially state that it was even Oakley, because they said they had to wait for DNA confirmation. And then even after DNA confirmation, they also shared with the family that her remains were not going to be released for approximately at least 6 weeks, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So you guys had to wait and wait and wait, for that to come, for you to find out what was going to happen. And, finally the DNA was, later on, they came back and said that DNA was confirmed, which was several weeks back.
They that, and once again, something we found out through the news. Like, now, Oakley's dad was informed, but we as Oakley's grandparents were not informed of that. And it's just, you just shouldn't have to find out things that way.
Right.
You shouldn't be put in a position like that. You shouldn't have news media reaching out to you and sending you their story that they just, posted online or just covered on the 6 o'clock news, and then hoping that you're going to get a reaction out of you, and a comment,
Right. Absolutely. So we went to take a look at the My Case Indiana, which you can look up anybody in there to see what is the active going on. I pulled up those for you guys to see. Obviously, as we look at this one here, talking about a pretrial hearing date, this is Madison Marshall, shows felony 1, Marion Superior Court. This is obviously in Indianapolis, Indiana. And then we have also Roan Waters, type murder, Marion County Superior Court 20, also. And here's what's a very interesting fact, guys. And I put these up there, and the reason they match is because they show them attending the same pretrial at the same time under the same judge, as well as for the jury trial, which I know, Christine, when you and I talked, we kind of found that a little unusual, unless the attorneys, I would assume then would have already maybe come back and said, we want these trials separated or not separated, because obviously Madison Marshall is going to have to state, like she did in the probable cause affidavit, where she would testify, right, against Roan, stating what she stated that he had done to Oakley, and that she was the one who indicated where Oakley's body could be found and where they drove out to.
Yeah, I know we talked about this, and I'm really perplexed actually by this entire situation here. Um, Roan originally had his next court hearing once he was extradited back to Indianapolis. He appeared, um, and then they set his next court hearing for July 31st. So Madison's pretrial and trial for June 28th and July 10th, that was already set before Roan was even ever extradited back to Indianapolis. And then once he got back, they set his for um, his next court hearing. It wasn't a pre-trial, it wasn't a trial, it wasn't anything like that. His next court hearing was actually not until July 31st. And then the next thing you know, we see this update of, it being June 28th and July 10th. And just not understanding, why. And I'm not a lawyer. I don't know. I don't know anything about really deeply about this judicial system and how that truly operates in situations such as this, obviously, because I've never had to go through this before. But this just seems very odd to me. So if anybody out there has a better understanding, please feel free to enlighten us, because it is a bit perplexing.
Right. And part of the continuation of justice for Oakley, I just want to share with everybody, because, you're also intentions in that is because you want to be there during the actual trial of against Roan and Madison, correct?
That is correct. Yeah, we will be there because we will be on the prosecuting side. We will sit on Oakley's side, the side of justice. Um, we have said, from the very beginning, that we do not support Madison's decisions and what she has done. It does not mean that we don't love her. You don't unlove a child, okay? You just don't. But that does not mean that you have to support their actions. It does not mean that you condone that behavior. She has to be absolutely responsible for her
Right.
part in this, just as much as Roan needs to be responsible. They both need to be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law, as the law deems, necessary for each of them. And we will sit on Oakley's side of the courtroom.
Right. And I know that you had started, yourself uh, now I have to remember what it's called, a Cash App itself. I know that I had shared with the group and a community page and stuff on here that you had started up because you were looking and trying to prepare for basically all of this for Oakley. So I know that you were talking about that you were looking at, the stone for Oakley's grave and trying to, make arrangements and stuff for that, and what other needs and stuff in there, because you wanted to have a, you know, gathered with, family and people who have supported the Justice for Oakley of, a gathering, a memorial for Oakley, and to try to do all that you can, as well as making sure that justice is served for her, that, that you're there, making sure that both Madison and Roan know that you are there for Oakley and what happened to her was wrong, and that you want to make sure that they know that you're there making sure the right things are happening in her case, and there's no flaws or anything like that that it goes on for any of that. Plus, with anything, I know you talked about, you're not sure of what will continue in support of maybe even Oakley's name, even moving forward after the trial is over.
Yeah, the Cash App was originally set up for any funeral expenses and any miscellaneous expenses directly related to Oakley. We've been able to Thankfully, we just recently were donated a headstone for Oakley. Obviously, it's not ready yet, and we're so thankful that that was donated.
That's
Um,
wonderful.
we've had some other things donated for her celebration of life that we will be having. Um, but a large part of that is when we talk about miscellaneous things directly related to Oakley. You know, Oakley, to to be real, you can't change laws until you can't just step up in front of Congress to change a law. It takes time, it takes money. Um, and we are looking to hopefully start a foundation or something in Oakley's name, um, so that we can continue to ensure that Oakley's name lives on and that we can try to start making these changes. Um, but you can't just get in front of Congress and ask them to change something. It's a process. It's going to take time. It takes resources, and that is the goal here for Oakley, is to ensure that you know people don't forget her. We
Right.
will never ever let that happen. And in addition to that, how can we help other families? How can we advocate for other families who are going through this kind of thing? And so that's what we're really hoping to do here for Oakley is, keep her name going out there, um, you know, continue to push forward for other families and to continue to push forward to change these laws. Another thing that we didn't really get to talk about law wise is, let's think about this. And I'm a mom too, but what about these dads out here? These dads out here, look at Zach's situation, in Oklahoma, they weren't married. So, immediately by law, Madison had, the sole rights there. And look at the situation that he was put in, and what could he do?
Right.
And there's something wrong there with that. Not every mom is a good mom, just like not every dad is a good dad. Like, you have we got to do something different. Those are the things that we got to start looking at. Those are the changes that need to be made. um, and obviously we've got a general idea of where we can start with these things, but it's going to take time, resources, help. We can't do this on our own. um, we want people who want to help. That's why we have Oakley's page set up. We need people. We need people with the knowledge and the skill and the ability and the drive and the desire to change the future for America's children, and for fathers or mothers or grandparents. Like, how do we, what are the things that we need to look at to start doing what's right for the children of America?
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I know that, it has been a lot, and it's a lot to uh, take on all at once, especially like you said before, you've never been in this situation before. You don't know what stuff to do or have to do. And I know that the biggest thing that, you're going to be doing right now in the closest future is being able to um, go to, go to the trial and make sure that justice is served for her, and then let it guide you from that point of what you're doing and what's going to happen.
Absolutely.
So um is there anything else that we didn't cover, or that you can think of that you also wanted to share with our group who's watching here with us tonight?
We've covered so much.
I think we
Uh,
did.
so I want to just first off say thank you, because there's so many things that we got to talk about tonight that are not, it's not in the affidavit, and it's not things that have really been spoken about before. We were able to really put our heads together here and get this timeline laid out. Thank you for putting it into the PowerPoint. That's amazing. And I really appreciate that because I think it made it a whole lot easier. I'm hoping it made it a whole lot easier for everybody to follow. I know that there's some dates in there, and it seems very questionable when we bounce back and forth from March 7th. Why, if they're asking for the public's assistance on March 8th, did they go to Albany Street on March 7th? Like, you know, we're gonna hope and trust right now that, we've laid this out for everybody, hopefully a little bit better, and we're just going to hope and trust the process here, and that justice is going to be served for Oakley as it should be. And we won't stop fighting for that. Just because two people are currently behind bars doesn't mean that more shouldn't be.
Right.
um, and that's the big thing. Like, everybody needs to be held accountable for their part in this, and we want answers, and we won't stop because that's what Oakley deserves. And so
Absolutely.
that's
Well,
kind of
and we all know how when we can get to court and suddenly something is messed up or screwed up or something goes on and justice isn't served there either. So, that's why you can't just let it go and we don't pay attention to what's happening. Um,
exactly. Just because we're in a kind of a, you know, a s- I don't want to say a standstill. We're just in a moment of hold right now. It does not mean that this isn't done. There's so much coverage that can still be done. There's so much advocating that can still be done. There's so many conversations that can still be had. And then we got to go to trial. And just because trial is set for the 10th of July does not mean that that's really what's going to happen. We know and we see all the time that trial dates are changed. So we don't know what's going to happen next. This could very well be pushed back. We don't know.
right,
No matter what, we're not going to stop. And just because we're not super loud and vocal, or, in Oakley's group, we're not giving tons of information every single day, does not mean that there's not stuff happening in the background. You know,
right,
trust the process, and just know that we're doing everything we can every single day. And some days it's more quiet than others, and other days we're hard at work, but just
right.
know that we're not stopping. We're not stopping until there's change. We're not stopping at just justice. And, we're going to ensure that Oakley's name is never forgotten.
Absolutely. Well, and that our justice warriors who join us here and with Justice Served Daily, we're here for you to help spread the word and get the word and stuff out there. And I know the one thing that, you're hoping is that, the media will pick up on some of those failures that they didn't pay attention to, right? The 911 call, the being there earlier and, never receiving an advocate and stuff for that,
Yep.
and things like that. So you're wanting, media to do that. And because the court dates, you've got the pretrial end of June, July 10th, we've got the actual trial date. We need to make sure that that stays in the news and people are paying attention. So when this does finally go to trial, guys, so we want to make sure that Oakley's story stays out there and continues and keep supporting this family as you guys go through all of it. And we're definitely with you and appreciate you letting us, be in here with part of your story and you sharing Oakley's story with us and the information about this beautiful little girl. So
Absolutely. And thank you again for allowing us to come on here and for your guys' support, your continued support. we truly appreciate it. Everybody who's been following along, thank you. Thank you for continuing to, keep Oakley there at the forefront of your minds, and, you know, for, for just joining us on this journey. And, that's what we need. And we can't thank you guys enough. So.
All right. Well, we appreciate you coming on, Christine, and I know you and I will continue to talk and see what we're going to do, and we're going to try to work on that local Indianapolis media here together, hopefully getting them to pick up the story here again beginning next week. So,
absolutely. Yes. Thank you again for your time, and we'll be talking soon.
All right. Thanks, Christine.
Thank you.
Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Well, thank you guys so much for being on here. We wanted to get that information out there. Like I said, I had that probable cause affidavit, but I knew when that first came out, it was very upsetting to family because it went straight out to news, and they learned the horrific way that Oakley's body was found. And, I didn't want to jump out there to just be getting out the probable cause affidavit and say it. And just make sure that the family was ready for that to be shared. But because we did reference it tonight a few times, I will be doing a drop video that all I do is read the probable cause affidavit for you, show you all the details that are in there. And you'll know that this kind of corrected some of that info and included a little bit more info than they actually had. So we appreciate all of you. I appreciate you all supporting the cases we try to support. And as justice warriors, I just ask you guys to please keep her name out there. So it is Justice, the number 4, Oakley Snow. Justice for Oakley Snow is the Facebook page that Christine has for the family. And then, of course, on our stories, we also do the Justice for Oakley Snow as well. But I appreciate all of you guys being here. It means a great deal. Please, if you want to keep hearing about stories like this that we're trying to help and updates of Oakley's, please hit that subscribe button. Please hit that like button. And I appreciate all of you. It means a great deal to me for you to be here and support Oakley's family. So thank you all so much. And thank you for making sure that justice is served daily. Good night, guys.